he was always, yeah, he was always interested in that emotional truth, and he actually helped change the course of the Andy Griffith Show when
I
he had the
wanted to ask
turmeric.
you about that.
Yeah, well, it's amazing.
Tell us that
I
story.
mean,
This is a wonderful,
okay.
wonderful story from the book.
Well, when we began, we did the pilot for the Andy Griffith Show. It was a spin-off episode of Danny Thomas, and it was done in front of an audience, by the way. And I had one or two scenes, one fairly lengthy scene, and Dad had prepared me, and it worked. Everybody observed that, understood how Dad was able to really help the production. So by the time, and they knew he was an actor. Andy also connected with him based on their kind of rural, or shared rural backgrounds. But when it came time to start the series, we would always have a read through on Thursdays where we would read two scripts. And of course, I couldn't read at that point. So Dad would fill in and read the part. Did that for the first year or two until my reading skills caught up with the process. But Andy and would take, all the actors would get to sort of speak afterwards. Dad didn't speak in the room in front of everybody, but he apparently took Andy aside early on and said, I see how they're writing the Opie-Andy relationship. It's kind of a typical sitcom father-son relationship where the kid is, he's kind of a wisecracker, and he seems to be a little smarter than his dad, and his dad's off balance, and it's funny to see. And, I understand that. But the tone of this show seems to be more grounded in reality. Couldn't it be just as interesting if Opie respected his father? Couldn't you find, humor and comedy and something very relatable in that? And Andy took that away and took it to the writers, and it changed the course of the show. He agreed with it. He said, let's base this relationship, this Opie-Andy relationship, more on the Ronnie Rance relationship. And I didn't know anything about this at the time. I heard about it 30-some years later when I was doing a reunion TV movie, Return to Mayberry with Andy and everybody. And Andy confided in me then, and I mentioned it to Dad, and he said, well, yeah, but I pitched that to Andy, and they accepted it. So somehow he had this confidence. He was, by the way, pretty fearless, even though he never reached the stardom that he wanted. He carried himself with a lot of confidence, not cockiness. And he was always taking a risk. If you're a freelance actor, you're always out on a limb. You rarely have any allies or support system. You always have to just keep putting yourself out there. And that's another thing that I really believe I inherited from both of them, was a kind of a desire to succeed, sure, but a kind of creative instinct that it was okay to take some risks. You didn't have to fear disappointment or even failure. That was a part of this process. And if you were engaged in this for your life, you should take some risks. Henry Fonda seconded that. I did a short-lived television series called The Smith Family with Henry Fonda. And Henry, at that point, Hank, he wasn't mean at all, but he was rather distant, didn't really fraternize very much. But he did with me because he had been on the road for a year with my father in Mr. Roberts, who Dad had been in that play. And he sort of remembered when my mom was pregnant with me and so forth. And so he confided in me that he felt like if this is your life's work, and if you love film, you should be a director. If you love acting, you want to make sure you go to the stage, go to theater every once in a while, just to keep it that fresh and alive. But film, that's a director's medium. I showed him short films and things like that. He was very encouraging. But he also said, of course you want to please the audience, and of course you work for a studio. But if you're not finding projects which frighten you, if you're not taking on projects which you think might be risky, every couple of years, you're not really you're not really playing to succeed here. You're not really honoring, the process. It was those words between my dad and Hank. I mean, they resonate with me still.